The shoelaces are the worst part of the shoe. We're just getting that out of the way first. Everything else, fantastic. All right, we've got the On Cloudventure Peak 3, the CP3s. I don't I don't know if people are starting to call it that, but like Cloudventure Peak 3 is kind of a mouthful, so I might just for the rest of this episode refer to this as the CP3. What do you think, Finn? You think Chris Paul's gonna be pissed at us for that?
I think he's going to be honored. I feel like once Chris Paul retires from the NBA, he could start a career in trail running. So,
Well, or he could at least help design a basketball shoe with On, kind of like how Roger Federer did with tennis,
ooh,
and then you got your CP3s.
I love that.
Yeah, so
I love that.
I assume Chris Paul watches these shoe reviews, so when he takes that idea and runs with it, at least give Conversational Pace a shout out. On running, CP3, trail running shoe from On. These shoes were provided to us by On Running, but we're under no financial obligation to say whether we like the product or not because we want to keep these reviews authentic, beneficial for you. No one's going to get to preview or watch this footage before it gets published to YouTube. Yeah, this is an interesting. This is the first On that we've had on the channel, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's got to be. I haven't run in an on trail shoe in like 2 years. I did run in the first version of this one though, so I can at least compare version 1 to version 3. I think I skipped version 2 because I didn't like version 1 that much. But so this is On's newest like lightweight trail racer. It is $160, which is on the lower end for most On running shoes. On's a pretty premium company. I mean, they make like $90 t-shirts, so 160 for a shoe, not too bad. My shoe is a size 10, and I mean, you can see how much dirt is on the upper. So it's very dirty weighted shoe, and dirty weight is 9.5 ounces. So we're hitting that sub 10 ounce mark, even with a ton of dirt in the upper. It's actually closer to 9 ounces brand new. I actually could not find the stack height numbers. I do know it's a 4 millimeter drop, and that the stack height is low. The number for the stack height, we're just going to go with low. The upper is it's a new mesh from On. It's an engineered mesh, but it's been largely simplified. So there's pockets of slightly more open, breathable mesh, but then there's also what would normally be plastic overlays, but instead they're now lines of much tighter knit mesh. And I feel like that's a really cool way of getting rid of plastic overlays. There is still some additional welded overlays like along the toe bumper, which is fairly robust. And then there's a full length welded overlay along the medial side of the shoe, which I imagine probably just helps against blowouts, keeping that foot centered over the shoe on technical terrain. The heel cup is pretty floppy. There's no plastic heel cup or any material going on there. There's a piece of soft plastic right along the back that gives it a little bit of structure, but not much. And then foam on the inside of the heel and the ankle collar, it's almost non-existent. I mean, there's technically a piece there, but it's almost completely flat.
Yep.
And then the tongue, it like blends straight into the forefoot of the
It's
upper.
like an internal sock design.
Yeah, and it's got zero additional padding. It's just like a perforated like pleather material on the top half, but then they're like knit on the bottom half. It's pretty cool, and it's like one of the most like seamlessly integrated tongues I feel like of a shoe, and that plays right into the craftsmanship of On. Like it's a very like premium and like thought out shoe in terms of the materials and the material choice. I think it's very good looking. Like I think On has always had some of the more stylish looking shoes, just with like some of their lines, and getting back to the how companies have always struggled to blend upper colors with midsole colors. On totally nailed this like sea foam or this mint. The overlay is the exact same color as the midsole. So kudos to you On for getting the colors matched nicely. Thank you for that. The midsole is their Helion foam, which is an EVA blend. It's a pretty firm foam. Like those who have run in pretty much any On shoe, except for the Cloud Monster, know that even though they're like On and they're all about clouds, they don't feel like clouds. They're actually pretty firm and very responsive. This is no different. I would probably go as to say this is the firmest shoe we have tested so far on the Conversational Pace channel. What do you think?
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what even is second place. Like um the Adidas, like Agravic Flow
The
2.
aggregate flow, yep.
Maybe the VJ Ultra.
The VJ was pretty firm.
But I would say this is firmer. Um, so yeah, Helion foam, it's an EVA blend. The Cloud Pods, every generation of On shoes, they keep shrinking, and I'm here for it. Like, I'm so glad that On didn't decide to die on the hill of Cloud Pods are perfect and we're going to keep them in the shoes forever. They've understood that like some shoes need Cloud Pods, some don't. Um, there is also an updated speed board in the shoe. The speed board for all On shoes pretty much ever has been more or less just a plastic plate that goes from heel to toe, and then they build the shoe all around it. And some people love it, some people hate it. I've personally never been a fan. This one is much thinner, so it's 70% in an injected TPU, which is fancy talk for plastic. 30% carbon though, and it is forked at the toe. So there's actually a split, going through it, which allows the plate and the shoe to move a little bit better on uneven terrain. So I like that On is starting to make some actual more trail specific changes to their shoes. I think this new speedboard is great.
At what percentage carbon can it be declared a carbon plated shoe, Brett?
Like 0.1%.
0.1%.
If they even
Okay.
get to use the word carbon, it's now a carbon plated shoe. I will say though, I don't think it needs more than 30% carbon. Like you and I were just talking offline, like this shoe's pretty stiff.
Yep.
A full carbon plate, I think it's too stiff. I think it's stiff enough though. This is a great utilization of a hybrid material plate for trail. On is getting closer. On might be the close. On and Solomon have the best hybrid material plates in their trail shoes. So that's one of my call outs right now is that not having the full carbon plate helps.
And like which shoes in the Solomon line would you refer to in that example?
So like the Pulsar Trail Pro
Okay.
has that fiberglass like type plate or whatever. I think it's like fiberglass and plastic, and it's stiff enough, but it's not so stiff where you're like out of control on the trails in it. The outsole is a new Mission Grip rubber compound from On and 3 millimeter lugs, pretty spaced out. It's interesting how they're actually pretty spread out like a soft ground shoe, but 3 millimeter lugs is not deep enough for a soft ground shoe. So it's like a little bit contradictory there. I would not wear this shoe on like mud because the lugs aren't deep enough. We'll get into where we took these shoes in a little bit,
I
but
think it's missing some lugs on the sides at the very top of the forefoot as well, especially if you're in a racing environment like a VK, if you're an On
the
athlete.
outsole could probably still use a little work. I will say this is On's best trail outsole they've ever done because that damn Grand Canyon down the midfoot and heel is gone. I had never run an On shoe where I didn't collect all sorts of twigs and rocks and shit underneath the shoe, and it's the most annoying thing ever. That is gone. I did not pick up a single thing in these shoes, and I am over the moon that On listened to feedback and they fixed it. So a couple more points to On for that, actually fixing what people didn't like. Finn, what kind of running did you get in this shoe?
I got 43 miles in this shoe, one 16-mile long run on fairly smooth trail terrain, two hikes with steep descents, trying to simulate like short distance racing environments, not racing myself or even running particularly hard, but just simulating those types of distances, all in the Salt Lake City foothills.
So I got in 45 miles in the shoe, and we both kind of agreed when we first started running in the shoe that this probably wasn't the shoe that running 100 miles in it mattered too much, because this is very much a short distance race shoe. Kind of like how we didn't feel the need to put 100 miles on the Hoka Rocket X2 that we reviewed, because it's like it was a race shoe. Durability is not a huge concern. We just needed to get in some runs to see how it performed and like how it would hold up on, technical hard running. So I got in 45 miles. I actually did do the very first day, just last weekend, of the Western States Training Camp runs in this shoe. So I did a 25 miler in this shoe with about, what was it, like 9,000 feet of descending and 6,000 feet of climbing. And I wore this shoe because I knew that the first 8 miles of the run were going to be in snow, and I wanted to be low to the ground and have nimble feet. It actually did great. The snow was pretty wet and slushy, so like I don't think any amount of lug depth would have really mattered. But I was able to like sidekick into the hill like great with this shoe. I felt very in control, super nimble. Once the trail opened up and got way more runnable was when the shoe started to not be great. For just like casual jogging, which was, miles, 10 to 20 of the run,
Yeah.
I did not love it because it just felt like it felt like all there was a plate under my foot. If you miss the minimalist days of running shoes with like you know, some of the old school New Balances from like
Merrill Trail Glove.
20, okay, this is not a Merrill Trail glove. There is still rock protection, but like all it really felt like was an outsole and a rock plate and then my foot. And some people's ears are going to perk up hearing that. My ears did not perk up while hearing that. That's why I wore this shoe on that Western States training run, because then you did descend two very steep canyons. And they are kind of technical. Like we both run down like towards Swinging Bridge, and like it's always a little bit more technical than you think. Like there's some big rocky steps, and
Totally.
there's always tons of leaves down there. These were fantastic. Like the rock protection in this shoe is the best of any of like the lightweight trail racers that I've used. So I actually feel very confident like going really fast in this shoe and knowing I'm not gonna break my foot on a rock. It's just the long day. Like that run was like 4.5 hours, and my feet were killing me by the end because there's just not enough cushion for me. So I learned some strengths and some weaknesses of the shoe for me. Fit wise, I thought it ran a little long.
A little long, yeah. And if you want, I can get into like fit in terms of the upper.
Yeah,
I
like
really,
if I were to
I
get
get
this again, I would probably go a 9.5.
9.5.
Yeah, I
It
think
would.
I would go a half size down because I was kind of right on the bubble.
It felt pretty true to size for me, and I'm a size 12.
Yeah, yeah, because my tens are always just like, it's got to be a perfect 10. And if it's any longer, then it's like too big because I'm always like right on that bubble. And especially for what I would be using this shoe for, to go on that half size down, getting a little bit more precision would be what I would go for, especially to make the shoe even narrower. So what'd you think of the fit?
Yeah, I'll get into the upper first. I was looking on On's website. I guess they called these patches on the upper breathability zones, and I like this re-engineered upper with that. I also really liked the thin walls of the shoes. It kind of reminded me of one of my favorite shoes of all time, an Ultra Duo. Plastic coated toe box. Again, just strong enough to kind of protect from the rocks. Medium width up front. I wouldn't say it's a wide toe box. I'd say it's a medium width toe box.
Wider than like the competitor, like La Sportiva or Solomon's like competitor short trail race shoes. Like I would probably say like the S Lab Pulsar
Yep.
soft ground, maybe the La
Yep.
Sportiva like the Captiva. Um, I think this has more forefoot volume than both of those.
Yes, I would agree. Um, we talked about it earlier. I really liked the internal sock design on this shoe. Also, another type of shoe that felt very comfortable out of the box. Um, On tends to have pretty comfortable upper designs. The only other shoe I've run in before is the Cloud Monster, for reference, but this also felt similar comfort. Um, Locked the feet in without many chafe points. Like I did not get any hot spots, anything like that. Um,
When you initially got this shoe, did you think the upper would lock your foot down as well as it
no,
did?
no, I did not,
Yeah, because I
and it
remember
did.
you being a little bit skeptical,
I
and
was
I was
super
too, because
skeptical about
like
lockdown.
it's just everything's so floppy and like soft. Like you probably don't even have to wear socks with this shoe.
Yep.
And usually that doesn't translate to a nice like locked down fit. And somehow they do it. It's really difficult though with these damn skinny like spaghetti laces. I think I kept these laces in just for the sake of the review, but I will probably just swap these out with some fatter laces because they're just too skinny and small. And when you tie the knot, it's like impossible to untie it. You pull the laces tight and then it just like immediately loosens back up. So I needed like a third hand to like put their finger down on the eyelet like I was tying a present. Um, so yeah,
One last thing on the upper I want to mention because it has been getting hotter in Salt Lake City. I did a couple like mid 80-degree runs in this shoe. I really like this breathable upper. Really does a great job, I think, of regulating internal shoe foot temperature. Also felt like I had a little bit extra. It fit well. There was a little bit of extra wiggle room, but I felt like that did a great job of regulating temp inside the shoe. So I didn't feel overheated running in this shoe.
so here's a question I have for you. I guess moving on to the shape of the shoe. So it's very narrow under the midfoot and the heel. And,
Yeah.
as with most like short mountain running models, the whole point of that is so you can like be very precise with your foot placements and you can like squeeze your foot onto the rocks. You have no extra material. How was it too narrow? How did you feel about the security underfoot for you?
I mean, and again, I feel like I'm talking to the PhD of shoes, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But whenever you have more surface area, especially towards the heel of the shoe, it makes up for any like form issues you have, or just like uh, unathletic movements. And I felt like I didn't have enough surface area in the back of the shoe for the stability and the support that I needed, not just on like technical terrain, but there was one day where I ran on like pretty muddy, wet surfaces, and that's where I felt like this shoe gave out and didn't do its job. And I think that this shoe is a pretty extreme example of a narrowing of the outsole as you get towards the heel, and that was one of my biggest. In addition to the shoelaces, one of my biggest concerns and critiques about this shoe is I felt like it went beyond a certain level of limited surface area in the back, and um, it really made it incumbent on the runner to make like really precise movements, like you said, to make up for that.
Yeah, I agree. Like with how narrow this is under the heel and the forefoot, like you have to have very beautiful biomechanics when you're running in this shoe for to like not tip your ankle or anything. I will say the faster you go, the better it works because your foot spends less time on the ground. And I can see where like if you were say racing like a technical trail 10K, this could totally work because you're going to be spending so little time on the ground and you're going to be like needing to fit your feet in places like very precisely. Like now there's just less room for your foot to get caught somewhere. But like, yeah, from just like a daily training standpoint, it's just so narrow under the midfoot and the heel where if you're not paying attention, like you can easily just like dump off the side of the shoe. And I like it was something I noticed. Like I had to definitely stay pretty conscious of it during my last big long run in these shoes to like keep my form like high and tidy, or else these shoes will start slapping. And that might actually lead to this shoe being like a good training tool for like some runs to like, you know, you wear Hokas every day, your form's going to start getting pretty bad because you're going to forget what the ground feels like. You throw this on once a week for a run, and it will tighten up those biomechanics. And then when you remember that and take that to a high cushion shoe, like,
Yep.
yeah, for all the like long, slow training days, that's going to be great. Um, but I guess, the shoe isn't necessarily made for your long, slow training days either.
I know we talked about it earlier, but I want to reemphasize it here. I did one run, one hike on Mount Wire here in Salt Lake City, and it just proved to me that the way they designed the lug pattern on the shoe, there was a little bit left to be desired. I wish there were like two lugs that were a little bit closer to the point of the forefoot there for grip. I
Hmm.
definitely felt a compromise in traction on steep grades because of the way the lugs were patterned out.
Yeah, that and just like 3 millimeters is a little short. I think for a shoe like this, 4 or 5 millimeters would have helped a lot. I know that's going to add a little bit of weight. That's something On could work with. Like something like this is just a different, like, okay, so I thought the rubber compound was fantastic. I think Mission Grip rubber compound is great. One thing I know is that like this is just a new company thing, like just haven't figured it out yet versus like Vibram's light base. The base that the lugs are all attached to has to be at least twice as thick as like a Vibram light base, um, which probably added a lot of weight to this shoe. So then On felt like they had to keep the lugs kind of short so that way it didn't get higher. But like if this was a light base shoe, these could probably be 6 millimeter lugs and the shoe's lighter. So probably something that On's just going to continue to work with or work on in the future because I'm sure they don't think that this is the perfect outsole either, but it's probably their best trail outsole they've ever made to date. Still got room for improvement though, I would say. Yeah, I did like the lockdown. Um, Definitely surprised me. I thought with how floppy this heel counter was going to be, that my foot would just slide forward and like even descending, like 1,000+ feet a mile into some of those Western States canyons. My toes were very happy. They didn't bang up against the front of the shoe at all. So I was very pleased with that.
You said something interesting earlier that I wanted to ask you about here. Like for athletes you coach, for example, if they had access to a shoe like this, you would be encouraging them to run in it once a week for like biomechanical integrity or memory.
I do recommend having a non maximal shoe in like the weekly rotation. Is it like, does it have to be this shoe? No. I mean, there's lots of shoes that it could be. Um, whether it's just kind of like an old school racing, like the Adidas Adios, Hoka's and all, like just any lower stack shoe, just so that way the body still remembers how to exist on the ground without 40 millimeters of stack height underneath, because it just keeps the biomechanics a little bit more awake. What So On created the shoe for like short distance trail racing. Would you race in it? And if so, like what distance?
I totally would. And my first exposure to this shoe before you put it on my radar was when we were live streaming the VK and All Mountain National Championships
Yeah, it's
at
Sunapee Scramble.
Sunapee. And we saw, for example, Adrian McDonald, who's an On athlete, wearing this shoe. And I think I would wear it in the same environment. Um, I was mentioning Mount Wire to you. There's a lot of hill climbs here in Salt Lake City, the Grandeur Peak, Olympus, Mount Wire. The list goes on and on. I think I'm going to keep this shoe on my shelves for when I'm at Max Fitness to give those like, time trial PR attempts. I think it's the
Yeah.
perfect shoe for that.
So
I do worry about the lug pattern, but uh, it's a great minimalist shoe for that type of stuff.
if it's dry and you're gonna run most of it, I bet the legs will be just fine. Yeah, I'm probably not racing anything over like a trail half marathon in this shoe. Like, On
Yeah.
said short trail racing, but that's kind of a loaded term because that could mean 50K and below to some people. But I think that this is like a like short trail race, like half marathon and shorter. Like um, your short sky running thing. Like, we've got the world championships, the world mountain running championships. Like, we've got the VK and the classic up down race. VK is like 3 miles. The up down is 8. I think this falls into that ballpark. But like, yeah, the longest I ran in this shoe was 4.5 hours, and it was probably about 2 hours too long. Like I think like for any single session, like 2 hours is probably about the max that I actually would really like to have this shoe on for.
Do you see? And I was, cause I was reading a couple reviews online, and there were some folks who were saying that this is a quote unquote elitist shoe. Like the only use case for it is like pro athletes that are, these like VK specialists and stuff. Do you buy that argument, or do you think that the everyday runner, there's room for it in your quiver?
So when the Nike Vaporfly came out, that exact same argument popped up, saying it's an elitist shoe. Nike made this expensive shoe that's only for the pros. That couldn't have been more wrong. Like all the current super shoe studies are showing that a lot of people kind of in the middle to middle up of the pack are having even bigger benefits from these super shoes than
Wow.
even the pros. So like if you,
It's a great
I
response.
mean, people run VKs that aren't elites. Like you're allowed to race a VK if you're not elite. And well, same with like a short trail race. Like you're absolutely allowed to race those if you're not elite. And if you're not elite, don't think you don't deserve a fun trail running shoe. Like absolutely go out and buy something that you're going to feel fast in. Like, yeah, that's yeah, where
It's hogwash.
there's a reason why the fast people wear fast shoes. It's because it makes them feel fast. And I think fast is a relative term. What's fast to someone might not be fast to someone else, but if it's fast to you, go get yourself a fun fast shoe and enjoy your VK.
Amen.
Yeah. And moving on to value, you can enjoy a fast fun shoe for $160. That's actually not bad compared to some of its competitors. It's actually I wrote a little list of what I thought were probably some competitor shoes, and it's actually the cheapest of them.
Is this technically a super shoe?
No,
Okay.
absolutely not.
30% carbon, not super shoe.
Not super shoe.
Okay.
It's just it doesn't have the only thing that it has in common with the super shoe is the word carbon. That's
Okay.
not enough. It's a fast shoe. It's fun, but again, I still don't know what a trail super shoe is. But I would say this
Go watch our
competes.
Tecton X video if you want clarification there.
I would say this competes against the S Lab Pulsar and Pulsar SG. That Solomon, it's narrower, it's a lighter shoe, but this On provides more protection. The Solomon's $180. This is 160. The newest model from Norda, the 002, I would say kind of slots into this. Like I know, like David Hedges just wore it for a 100-mile race over in Europe. That 002 model. Um, Clearly, it has like a little bit more cushion than this On, but like it's their lightweight trail race shoe. I mean, it's Norda. That one's 290. This is 160.
I was kind of hoping, and I wish that there was more lug depth, because I was kind of hoping that was going to make their version of the Hoka Jaws.
Well, how good has the Hoka Jaws done? I mean, I've only seen like one pair in the wild ever.
Worn by the greatest of all time.
I know. And if the greatest of all time can be pushing that shoe and like no one still buys it, then like I as a competitor brand would not be copying it.
And that's why I wondered, like, is the shoe too out of touch from the common person to want to purchase?
Yeah, who knows?
I think you made a
I
good
mean,
argument. I think you made a good
I've
argument. I
I've
was just
never
curious.
I've never worn the Hoka Jaws, so I don't know how it fits or how it compares. But I will say that I think this shoe fits great. Um, the La Sportiva Captiva is 165, kind of in a similar realm. And then like I feel like once we get to review this shoe, um, the normal Chirac, I feel like somehow that's going to be the shoe that we end up throwing in like every single category. Because like on paper, it competes against this shoe. Although I doubt Kilian Jornet is going to race UTMB in this Cloudventure Peak 3. But he's going to wear the Chirac for UTMB. He's going to wear it for Sierra Zinal. He's going to wear it for Zagama. Like Sierra Zinal Zagama, I could see like you could get away with this shoe for that. But that shoe's 195. This shoe's 160.
Yep.
So from a value standpoint, getting like a high performance trail racer, that's actually very comfortable and has a little bit more room in the forefoot. This one, this one's not bad.
What are the debate questions for the viewers?
Does it feel like On is starting to take trail running a little more seriously with this shoe? Because this is significantly different from the last 3 years of On trail running shoes, like Cloud Vista, Cloud Venture, Cloud Ultra. We've got the Cloudventure Peak 3, which is like getting more niche towards like short mountain running. I'm excited to see what their like future ultra shoe is. Like, what's their Western States shoe? What's their UTMB shoe? Because before it seemed like every On shoe, just like they were all different models, but they all did the exact same thing. This one feels like it does something different. So does it feel like On is taking trail running a little more seriously? I guess, have you run in any of the previous On trail shoes? What did you think of them?
I love that question, by the way, because we just did the review for the Nike Terra Kiger, and you were saying how just based on the quality, the overall quality of Nike's 2023 line, they could be not finally, but in this year taking trail more seriously. And so maybe the other question is like going back in history, what have been some other moments in shoe brand history where there was like a pivot and we saw reinvestment or a reinvigorated shoe line?
Yeah, I'll have to go do some hunting through the archives because it just seems like anytime, it just seems like they all folded. All the companies, like, I'm thinking like Montrail. They had some great shoes. They
Pearl
started to
Izumi.
get a little less popular. Folded. Pearl Izumi, the run division got canned. The only one that's actually made it like comeback, I guess I don't even know if I would call it a comeback because I feel like they were never back to begin with, was North Face. They've like tried to make trail shoes multiple times and they've all been awful. And now this current generation of trail shoes is like by far the best they've ever done. So like, is that a comeback? Maybe, maybe not. So yeah, what companies do you think are making the comeback? I think Nike's one. On they're on their way. But yeah, be sure to like and subscribe. Let us know what you think of the shoe. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you out there on the trails.